Hello, everyone. I think we're going to give it just one more minute for everyone to join who would like to join us live, and then we'll get started. Okay, it's 1 minute. It's past 12. Let's get going. Good afternoon and morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this Silversoft sponsored webinar on how to make more strategic scheduling decisions within your agency with Deltek WorkBook. All right, so as usual, just a couple of housekeeping items that I'm going to go through with you before we get started. I'm then going to introduce you to everyone on the call today from our team. Kellen's then going to chat you through high level what our demonstration is going to be on. And then at the end, we'll take some live questions from you all. So we're going to be using Demio today. For those of you that haven't used it in the past, please do keep yourselves muted right until the end of the webinar, where we'll be taking live Q&A. You are, however, welcome to pop your questions into the chat panel as we go, and we'll answer them as we get to them. And we're going to be running 2 short little polls today, so please do participate. We always value your feedback, and they are quite fun. And as I mentioned, live Q&A at the end. Okay, so I am Yvonne. I'm the head of marketing at Silversoft, and I'll be in charge of assisting you guys if you need anything logistically during the course of the webinar. So please ping me in the chat panel if you're having any audio issues or need assistance with anything. I can help you where I can. And then we've got Kellen, one of our awesome implementation consultants, who's going to be chatting you through the live demo today. Cool, so our first poll is up. I'm going to launch the poll now and give you guys about a minute to please participate. Awesome. Okay, looks like the movement has stopped. So super interesting. It's flipping between about 77 and 82% of you do have visibility into which employees are working on certain jobs in your system. So that's great. 14% no, and only 7% don't use the system. So that's great. Okay, Carl, our rock star, is going to chat us through our demo topics. Thanks, Carl, and welcome.
Thanks, Yvonne. Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of today to join us on this webinar. I'm just going to get my screen share set up so that we can switch into the environment. So here, today's session, I'm going to be taking you through how to do the scheduling within the workbook platform. As you can see here on screen, I'm sitting inside of my job list where I have a host of job bags that are already populated in my environment. So as a client service manager or a project lead, I'm going to enter the system and I'm going to come in and set up a new job in the system. So I can go and add a job into the account. Here I'm working on my client is Sprite. I can go in and choose a project for my campaign or my job that I'm going to be loading in here. So I can say I'm going to be running another job bag for my first campaign. I can select a team for my job. So of course I want my Sprite team working on this. I can, of course, choose a department for who's going to be executing work within this job that I'm setting up. A job type as well. I can also specify what type of work I'm going to be doing within this job bag. So I'm going to go and select digital over there. And of course, I'm going to give my job a name. So here I can put in a job name. And of course, I've got a status marker at the bottom as well. So of course, I'm going to mark this as an in-progress job. It's going to go straight into the account so that I can work on my task management. The system will jump across to some of these details. So if I've got any custom dimensions on my job, I can of course go in and select what it is that, for this example, we have a billing category. So of course I can say this one is out of scope, for example. The system will take a few seconds to load my new job. What it's doing in the background is populating a schedule of tasks from the job type I selected on this job bag. So based on that job type, I've got a specific set of tasks that will auto-populate inside my job bag. This obviously saves me the steps of having to create those from scratch. So as you can see here in line, I've got my new job that's opened with a job ID. It's obviously tied to the client that I'm working on. I can see my job name and the project I'm working on. The next step I'm going to take is I'm going to move into my task view on the left-hand panel here, which is where I can administer all the to-do items within the job bag. So that's loading up for me here. And as you can see, I've got a host of tasks that are sitting inside my job bag. I have strategy and ideation as a phase, and as you can see, I can minimize that as it has a grouping set up for different tasks that are to be executed within the strategic and ideation or concept phase. And I have a production phase where I can obviously do my rollout or my execution of my campaign. So Workbook does cater for this predefined list of tasks that can populate when the jobs are opened. So this of course saves a massive amount of time if you do have very similar booking procedures in terms of what kind of tasks you need to see in your job bags. I'll touch on a few alternatives in terms of doing these tasking templates. I don't have to have them auto-populate. I can deliberately go into my copy schedule options, and I can actually have a different host of templates available in the system. We also have copying between other jobs. So if you've run a campaign in another job bag and you want to create a very similar timing plan from that job, you can copy across from there, or I can copy from my quote. So if I have a price quote or a cost estimate, also commonly known as, I can copy all the lines I have in that CE or that quote into my schedule and book my team accordingly. So I'm going to demonstrate the schedule copy. So I'm going to use a template option there, and you can have as many of these as you would like within your environments. So here you can see I have my typical new job schedule. So there are the tasks that I have already got through that are coming in by default. But if I want to deploy anything else, I can potentially pull in a dev schedule as another example, where I can see the different tasks available, and I can deselect any of the ones that are not applicable to the project I'm working on. But for now, I will pull across those into my schedule. And as you can see, if I minimize those defaults, I have a third phase of my timing plan populating down there. So that just gives me the options in terms of the type of tasks I want to see in my timing plans over here. There is, of course, a manual way to pull in any additional tasks where you can just add on the fly any other additional items that you might require. So the next thing I'm going to chat to you guys about, of course, is now that I have some tasks in my view here, I am sitting on a Gantt view. We have a few options on the right side there where you can work with your tasking plan from a Gantt chart, where you can see the days of the week and the month across a very visual time frame over there. Or we have a grid view as well. So based on preferences, certain teams do like a grid view because they can open up the dates on their tasks in a calendar format like this. And they can, of course, modify the dates accordingly, update the statuses, the priorities, colors on the tasks, etc. So this grid view does give you guys a lot more information as well that you can, of course, go in and modify as you are setting up your timing plans. I'm going to stick to the Gantt. That is my preference. I'd like to show you guys how you can administer the tasks within the Gantt. So as you can see here, because I created my job today, all my tasks are kicking off from the 14th. I can obviously go in and change that if I need to. So I can pick up my phase and I can drag it along. Let's say we're only going to kick off from Friday, and my secondary phase will obviously come in after we've had our kickoff. Once the strategist has done some work, once my CD has done some work, and of course my account managers and my traffic managers would be working across the entire duration. So as you can see, I simply can drag and drop the items around here, and this is automatically updating the start and end dates of these tasks in the plan. I can also tell the system that my strategist is not allowed to start working until the kickoff has happened, and nor can my creative director. So as you can see here, I've created a task dependency between these items within the system. I can also say that the account management team and the kickoff would happen in synergies, because that is all part of the team that are going to start working on and getting the team ready for that kickoff. So I can have different metrics to say this task starts after this one, or these ones are working at the same time. We can have ones that go from end to end, and a whole bunch of other little variances that can be applied. If I recognize when I start to do my capacity planning on this task that my team is not available on Friday for a kickoff, I can drag my kickoff task over to Monday, and it'll simply check. Oh, let me drop that down. It'll update all the other tasks that are tied into that as well. So this view and this method of doing the planning and the timing around these tasks in the system is quite efficient in terms of that. If one thing gets knocked on, you can manage the subsequent tasks and even phases that are coming up for your schedules on the system. All right, so that is part of setting up the initial plans. I'm now going to show you guys how I would go in and do the task bookings or the assignments of work to my team members. So for my kickoff, obviously would like to do for this individual task is I want to book the entire team that I have working on this project. So I'm going to open up my booking panel, which is an in-window view that I see down here that opens up in the same panel. I can see I have a little resources tab over here where you would see the booking data, capacity and availability, etc. So there's a whole lot of information that's going to be populated down here. But because I'm interested in booking my entire team, I'm going to go and add from that plus button at the bottom, and I can go and say book a team from the system. So of course, on this team booking, I can go and choose my Sprite team, and I can populate my tasking assignment with everyone that's working on this on this particular project. So I've got my copywriter, strategist, my designer, etc. So I can go ahead and assign an hour for my kickoff, and I can add my team to that. The system will ask me if I'd like to confirm, and I can say yes. And it'll do its work in the background, and now I can close that little window. As you can see here in the Gantt view at the top, I've got all these little icons where I can see my team members that are booked against this particular task. And down the bottom here, I can also see that I've got my individuals on this task. For the moment, everyone has got availability. The capacity in the system is all looking good. There's no errors flagging. I have no exclamation marks telling me that there are any problems with this booking. So this is looking great at the moment. Of course, as an example, you'd be able to go and modify any individual person's time if you needed to adjust anything for a particular person in each of their bookings. The action of doing this task assignment does send each of these team members an alert in the system to tell them that they have been booked on this piece of work. Another method of doing the task assignments in the system, if I just close that bottom panel, just to keep the screen a little bit clearer, is to go and add, let's say I want to book my strategist on here. I don't have to use that multi-booking panel. I can go to the strategist line and highlight that, and I can use a quick add button where I can add a resource to a task. From this view, I can simply drag my strategist over onto that task. It'll do a little pop-up, and it'll show you that for the time frame from the 20th to the 21st, over 2 working days, Max has 16 hours of availability. So I can go ahead and assign whatever I need to for this piece of work. Then another way of doing it, of course, if I go back to my panel, I want to show you guys a few other pieces of functionality and the features we have down here. I used the plus button originally to book my entire team, but another simple way of doing it is to simply open up this drop down and assign my creative director to this task in line here. And as you'll see, the availability, the capacity for my team member is available to view there, and I'm able to go in and assign some time for their work on this piece of work. Then I'd like to show you guys the overbooking functionality as well. So I'm going to go to my account management line, and I'm going to assign that task to my client service director. From this indicator, I can see that for the duration of this project, there are 62 hours available for Corley to do this work. I'm going to go and deliberately overbook her for 70 hours on that. I can now see that on this piece of work over here, let me just do a little reload there. I can see here that of the 70 hours on this account, that 8 hours have not been booked because she did not have the full capacity to cater for that extra time. So I can request the system if I know that this is work that's going to have to happen and there's obviously perhaps some overtime that's going to have to go in on this. I can go into this little battery on the capacity indicator on the side there, and I can go in and request the system to allow this overbooking to go into the system. Corley will still receive her booking, but of course it's only going to show that she can work 72 hours at this point, but I don't want the system to be flagging that there are unbooked hours against the task. So I'm going to go in and say, please allow an overbooking. And I'm going to say the default booking on any of these items would be based on a basic time or an ideal time. So within Workbook, we have a setup that can be defined on each agency's preference, where your basic time, your working hours per day is typically around an 8 or an 8.5 hour day. And ideal time would be around a 6 hour bookable, billable day. So you guys have some flexibility around how many hours you would predefine for your team members. We also have flexi time. So this would be an overtime allowance. So I can say that for every person working in my agency, I'm going to require a 4 hour flex time, which if they're working on a basic plus flex would allow me to book them up to 12 hours a day in certain situations like this. So I'm going to go in and book Corley on my basic plus 100% flex, and I'm going to recalculate that booking. This will then, of course, allow that unbooked time to be absorbed into her schedule overview so that I can see that she has got that allowance in the system. Let's see, there we go. Is it going to come through? Oh dear, what's happened to my schedule? Put her on a 75. Have I given her some flex time? There we go, it's adjusting. Nope, not enough. If I go into an unlimited hours as well, that will also give me an unlimited amount of time. So you can see, of course, that has obviously pulled through, that reversed the non-booking on to Corley's task. And then the final thing I'd like to show you guys as well is, of course, once I've gone in, modified all my plans and my schedules, and I've done my assignments, I am able to export my views into a Gantt chart or a export schedule list, etc., so that I can go in and export into a PDF where I've got a nice chart that I can export and send to my team or to clients or whatever the case may be. So as you can see here in another sample that I have, these are some of the reports that you can take off the system to manage with the team members and your clients. All right, so that is the the closing on the demo there, I'll just switch back over to Yvonne. Thank you very much.
One more poll before we get into questions. Alrighty, you should have visibility of the next one. Do you use a tool to schedule work into your studio? Okay, looking good. Very much in line with our first poll question, so that's great. 78% of you are using a tool to schedule work into your studio, so that's really good. Okay, guys, time for some questions. Please feel free to either ask Kellen live, you can unmute yourselves, or if you are a bit shy, just chat it, pop a chat into the chat box, and we will answer it.
Question. How does the costing structure for this tool work? I think that'll be something that Yvonne will send across to our sales team, and they'll obviously be able to work on your custom requirements for the platform. Ryan's asking, can users log time against their tasks? Absolutely. So as demonstrated on those task bookings, each user who is booked gets an alert to say they are working on that piece of the project, and they are able to log their time sheets or directly onto those tasks as they manage their workload in the system.
Carl, there's another one that's come through here. How can I see the overall capacity of my entire team?
Great. Okay, so we've got inside of WorkBook, we do have a schedule overview and capacity planning module where you can get a view of all of that in the system. So let me switch back over on there and we can pull that up. It will be a great topic for the next session in one of our webinars. So I'll just touch on it very briefly for you guys to see what it can look like. But we do have, as you can see on the left-hand panel here, I have a whole lot of different views. So a timeline calendar, weekly schedules, capacity status overviews, task matrices, employee summaries. So as you can see, quite a few options to view the data. This is one of the most commonly used ones in terms of the fact that obviously I can see the week that I've got ahead here. I can scroll forward into upcoming weeks to see what's happening with the team members. As you can see, my dummy admin profile is not working, so they are booked on leave. So this is actually what will happen when your team members are not available. And then you can see here, massive amount of overbooking. All of these are flagging red. So in terms of this is a task card. I can see the client, the job, the task, the number of hours, and the deadline that my team are working towards. So as you can see here, Corley is booked up. John has some availability on some of these days over here. Julia frees up at the end of the week. So this is one of our schedule overviews that would give you guys insight into how to plan and manage between your teams. And these views are quite nice. You can drag and drop to reorganize things. So if my copywriter is sick and I need to rebook to a different team member, I can simply pick that up and move it across through into different plans and rebook those.
Perfect. Cool. And then will time tracking be automated, or do the resources have to click on a clock icon to start and stop time tracking?
So there are multiple ways to do their time entries. You can either manage it from a list of tasks that you have, and you can click inline to add your time entries. There is a start-stop timer. You can also add a time entry when you finish the task. So you can go in and update in one action. You can change the task status, update your time entry, and close off your tasks. So there are a few ways that you can get your time into the system.
Awesome. Great, guys. I think we've got time for one more. There we go. Does the schedule overview reflect on the team's individual Outlook calendars?
So yes, it can. We can do integrations into Outlook. So each individual in the team is able to sign in and do a sync between their workbook tasking and their calendar items. They can define which way the data will flow. So if I'm a designer and I only want my tasks to come into my calendar, but I don't want my calendar items to arrive in workbook, I can set up that on my preferences. Whereas if I'm client service, I might want all my diary entries to come into workbook so I can manage my holistic schedule in one place. So you definitely have that as an option, and that can be set up per user who wants to see it in their accounts.
Awesome. Lovely, guys. I think our time is up. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Carl and Sam. And thank you to everyone for joining us. You're obviously welcome to reach out to any of us directly if you've got any other questions. It's probably easiest to just reach out to me. It's yvonne@silversoft.co.za. You will also just get a recording of the session, if not towards the end of this afternoon, tomorrow morning. So you're welcome to share that with your team members internally if you'd like to. Other than that, best of luck, keep safe, keep warm, and thank you, everyone. Until our next webinar. We'll chat soon.
Thanks, Yvonne. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.